Hey there, friends. I hope you're doing well. I'm Laura. Today's video is going to be a quiet little ramble about something I don't hear enough people say out loud. I avoid bossing, and I'm not ashamed of it. I want to talk about why PVM doesn't vibe with me, and why so many neurodivergent folks, especially those with ADHD or autism, gravitate towards skilling instead. Because we're not lazy, we're not scared, we're not bad at games. We just play differently, and that's okay. Now go grab a tea, your favorite hoodie, and let's dive in. Let's start with the obvious. What is PVM and why is it stressful? PVM, or bossing, stands for player versus monster, a type of gameplay where you fight against computer controlled enemies in games like old school RuneScape or WoW. PVM includes everything from slaying basic mobs to tackling high-level bosses, raids, and dungeons. It's often fast-paced, requires quick decision-making, and is sometimes done solo, though often as part of a team. Bossing in games like old school RuneScape, World of Warcraft, or Albion Online is often pitched as the endgame content, the real content, the thing you should be striving for. But let's be honest, for a lot of us, especially neurodivergent players, bossing isn't just stressful, it's exhausting. You're expected to master precise mechanics, tick perfect switches, prayer flicking, rotation memorization. You have to juggle movement, cooldowns, positioning, inventory management, and situational awareness all at once. For someone dealing with executive dysfunction, that's a nightmare buffet of tasks. It's a constant mental load with no buffer for mistakes. And then there's the pressure, not just from the game itself, but from other players. Whether it's being in a raid team or just joining a group through matchmaking, you're now part of a social system. People expect a certain level of performance, speed, results. And if you mess up, you don't just lose your gear, you lose face. Maybe they flame you. Maybe they type sigh in chat. Maybe they say nothing. But that silence still sinks into your chest like a weight. That kind of dynamic hits hard if you struggle with rejection sensitivity, which is super common among those with both ADHD and autism. A single mistake in a boss fight can spiral into a loop of shame, anxiety, or even trigger a shutdown. You might log off, you might not come back for days. You wonder if you even belong in the game. And let's not forget the sensory load. Fast camera movements, flashing lights, aggressive sound cues, visual clutter. If you're autistic or sensory sensitive, that environment isn't just difficult, it's painful. It's like trying to do calculus while someone screams in your ear and flashes a strobe light in your face. Even preparing for PVM can feel like a job. You've got to optimize your gear, memorize a wiki page of strategies, watch a 20-minute guide, and mentally rehearse each mechanic over and over. By the time you're finally ready to try the boss, you're already mentally drained or even burned out. And that's assuming you even made it through all those steps without succumbing to analysis paralysis. So, yeah, a lot of us just don't boss. Or we try it once, have a panic attack halfway through the fight, and then quietly go back to cutting yew trees in Draenor Village. Because you know what? That tree never judges you. That tree never yells at you. That tree doesn't expect a prayer flick or a tick perfect switch. It just is. And listen, this doesn't make us lesser gamers. It doesn't mean we're not doing it right. It means we know what our brains need, and we choose to honor that. Sometimes that looks like finding our own endgame. Sometimes it means accepting that comfort is more valuable than conquest. Sometimes it means letting go of the pressure to prove ourselves and simply letting ourselves play. Because play is supposed to be fun, not a test we're set up to fail. Now let's debunk some common myths and misunderstandings that non-neurodivergent players may have about why we choose skilling, not bossing. First off, let's talk about the assumptions or myths that float around in gaming spaces, especially in communities where bossing is considered the real endgame. Because if you've ever expressed that you prefer skilling to bossing, you've probably heard at least one of these. You're just scared. You're being lazy. PVM is more fun, you just haven't tried hard enough. You're wasting your time grinding when you could be making real progress. Let's pause here. These kinds of statements often come from a place of misunderstanding, sometimes even good intentions, but they're based on neurotypical assumptions about what makes a game enjoyable or what progress should look like. But here's the truth. Neurodivergent players just experience games differently. For someone with ADHD, the chaos of bossing might be overstimulating or frustrating. For someone with autism, the unpredictability, noise, and pressure of high-level encounters might trigger shutdowns or anxiety. For someone with executive dysfunction, even preparing for a boss, gear, inventory, learning rotations, stocking potions, might be the biggest roadblock to getting there. And most importantly, for a lot of us, skilling is the fun part. It's not a fallback. It's not a stepping stone. It's not something we're settling for. We enjoy it deeply, and that's valid. When we skill, we're engaging with the parts of the game that soothe us, ground us, and make us feel in control. We're playing in a way that respects our bandwidth, our sensory needs, our attention spans. We're not avoiding challenge, we're just redefining it. So no, we don't all need to chase Jad or learn Inferno or max out our DPS rotation in a raid group to be considered real gamers. What we need is a little understanding and a reminder that there is no wrong way to play, especially when you're playing in a way that supports your mental health. Let's dive deeper into why neurodivergents cluster around willow trees in Lumbridge or fishing spots in Port Salim. Skilling is safe. It's slow. It's predictable. You know exactly what's going to happen. You click a tree, you get logs. You fish at a dock, you get tuna. You mine a rock, you get ore. There's no surprise mechanic, no enemy ambush, no sudden loss of gear, just a clean, simple feedback loop. Click, wait, level, repeat. It might not be flashy, it might not be fast-paced, it might not be efficient, but it happens. Reliably, quietly, and without drama. And for a lot of neurodivergent players, that kind of structure is deeply, almost spiritually soothing. When you live in a brain that's constantly trying to parse chaos, where every decision splinters into 20 options, where noise and light and unpredictability fray your senses like sandpaper, something as quiet and orderly as skilling becomes a refuge. It's not just mindless grinding, it's stimming with intention. You're not just fishing, you're tracing a pattern in the game world that mirrors how you regulate your inner world. That gameplay loop, click, wait, level, is a dopaminergic rhythm. It gives your brain something consistent to hold on to, something that doesn't move faster than you can follow, something that doesn't suddenly change the rules and gives a steady supply of dopamine. This is especially powerful for people who experience emotional dysregulation, like myself, or sensory overload, like myself. Skilling becomes a kind of pressure valve, a way to recenter, a thing you can control when everything else feels like it's falling apart. It's also a rejection-free zone. You don't have to coordinate with others. You don't have to ask for help. You don't have to risk being wrong or slow or awkward in a group setting. The tree does not judge your gear. The fishing spot does not care if you misclick. The anvil doesn't sigh when you forget a step. Skilling respects your pace. Skilling makes space for your brain to simply be without needing to perform. And there's another layer to it as well: extrinsic motivation. When you skill, you get to decide what progress looks like. Want 99 wood cutting just because you like the sound of chopping logs? That's valid. Want to AFK cooking fish because the sizzle sound calms you? That's valid too. There's no wrong reason to do it. No social pressure, no leaderboard breathing down your neck. That kind of open-ended structure is exactly what makes games like old school RuneScape, Brighter Shores, or Melvor Idol feel so accessible to neurodivergent players. We set our own goals. We build our own routines. We work at our own pace. The game doesn't rush us. It doesn't shout at us. It simply holds space for us and waits for us to return. And in a world that rarely does that, skilling becomes sacred. One of the main reasons skilling feels so good to me, so right, is that it's self-directed. Nobody's yelling at you to get 99 cooking. There's no raid lockout timer ticking down. No gear score gatekeeping you from joining a dungeon. No team relying on you to memorize a boss fight or parse a DPS chart. There's no one breathing down your neck saying, you should be doing Slayer, or why aren't you training Herblore faster? You get to decide your goals. You choose your own path. You write your own rhythm. Want to fish shrimp for an hour and do nothing else? Go for it. Want to spend 3 days crafting bronze daggers and watching Hell's Kitchen? That's valid too. Want to chop maple trees while listening to podcasts, even if yous are technically better XP? That's your call. Games like Old School RuneScape, Melvor Idol, and Brighter Shores quietly hand you the reins. They say, do what you like. Take your time. No pressure. They give you permission, in a world that often doesn't, to go at your own pace. to exist in a system without having to constantly justify your playstyle. And for neurodivergent folks, especially those of us with ADHD, autism, or anxiety, this kind of sandbox autonomy isn't just relaxing, it's revolutionary. Because so much of life is about being told how to do things correctly, how to behave, how to work, how to function in a neurotypical framework. We're constantly navigating shoulds and ought tos, being judged for what we don't do fast enough, or loud enough, or right enough. You log into old school RuneScape and the game just says, "You want to chase clue scrolls all day instead of bossing? Sure, bro. You want a woodcut for 20 minutes and then just sit in the bank doing nothing? Cool. You want to keep all your fish and never cook them? Sure, why not?" This kind of gentle structure without judgment can feel like a breath of fresh air for a nervous system that's always on guard. It's a space where you set the bar, and that bar can be as low, weird, or whimsical as you want. And here's the secret. That kind of play isn't casual. It's intentional. It's nourishing to the soul. It's how we make these games into safe little ecosystems where we can stim, rest, reflect, and just exist as we are. Skilling becomes a form of expression in a way. A method of reclaiming joy from systems that so often turn joy into obligation. So if you're out there clicking on trout in Lumbridge, or tanning leather in Varrock, or standing still because you forgot what you were doing, know this. You're playing the game right, because you're playing it your way. Now, all that being said, let's not fall into the trap of thinking skilling is the only valid way to play. Because for some people, even some neurodivergent people, bossing is actually where they feel most alive. That might sound contradictory if you deal with executive dysfunction, sensory overload, or anxiety. But brains are complex. Comfort looks different for everyone. Some people thrive in high-pressure, high-focus situations. They live for the adrenaline spike of a tough boss fight. They find satisfaction in mastering prayer flicking or soloing a dungeon at low HP. For some, bossing is a flow state, not chaos. It gives their brain a clear, immediate goal. All distractions melt away. The loop is tight, controlled, and deeply engaging. Every click matters. Every reaction is meaningful. In that moment, there's no room for rumination or spiraling thoughts, just clarity and momentum. That kind of intense engagement can be incredibly regulating for certain kinds of ADHD minds, especially those who struggle with understimulation or focus inertia. And for autistic folks who enjoy structured challenge, who find joy in repetition that's laced with just enough unpredictability, PVM can feel like solving a living, breathing puzzle, a ritual dance with just the right number of variables. And hey, some people just like big, flashy numbers. There's no shame in chasing loot, kill counts, or pets. That dopamine rush when a rare drops, that's valid too. So what's the point? The point is, playstyles aren't moral representations of who we are. You're not more serious because you boss. You're not more chill because you skill. You're not doing it wrong if you love raids, and you're not lesser if you avoid them forever. Some people skill to avoid stress. Some people PVM to burn it off. Some do both, depending on the day, the mood, or the spoon count. The beauty of games like old school RuneScape, Brighter Shores, Melvor, and even Albion Online is that they're versatile. They don't lock you into one path. They let you be a skiller today, a boss slayer tomorrow, and a confused bank standard the day after that. And if you're neurodivergent, having those options isn't just nice, it's essential. Because our needs change. Our brains fluctuate. Some days, complexity feels empowering. Other days, it's a nightmare that we have to slog through. So being able to choose without pressure or shame is what makes those games powerful tools for self-regulation and joy. That flexibility, the ability to bounce between skilling and bossing, or to choose which to do and which to do never, is what makes these sandbox-style games so powerful for neurodivergent players. Because our brains often don't operate in predictable linear ways. One day we might crave challenge and mastery. The next, we need safety and control. And that's not inconsistency. That's adaptability. Sandbox games ask an entirely different question. Not how fast can you kill this boss, but do you want to do this right now? What about that? That difference in framing changes everything. Because suddenly, you are the one setting the tempo. You can fish for an hour. You can woodcut for days. You can do Slayer quests and then go bake bread because your brain said, no more monsters today. There's no pressure, no teams waiting on you, no fail state that ruins your night when it's reached. This is where self-directed play shines. You don't need to justify your choices. You don't need to optimize unless you want to. You don't need to catch up to anyone. And honestly, that kind of permission-based play feels radical in a world and a gaming culture that constantly screams, go faster, do better. These games whisper something softer. Go your own way. You're doing fine. If you've ever felt like you're not a real gamer because you don't boss, or because you haven't beaten the inferno, never done any raids, or haven't even killed the giant mole, let me say this loud and clear. You are valid. The gaming community can sometimes feel like a spotlight that only shines on the hardcore, the elite, or the speedrunners with perfect rotations. But the truth is, there are as many ways to play these games as there are players. Skilling isn't a lesser form of play. It's not a consolation prize. It's not easier or for people who can't handle the pressure. It's just different. And for many neurodivergent people, it's better. Why? Because it's about tuning into our own brain's needs, our own rhythms. It's about recognizing that challenge doesn't always have to mean high stakes and high stress. Sometimes challenge is just about patience, persistence, and creating a safe space for your mind to breathe. We're not avoiding challenge, we're choosing comfort over cortisol, choosing peace over panic, choosing to protect our mental energy, not waste it. And that's not laziness, It's self-awareness. It's wisdom. It's knowing your limits and working with them, not against them. When you sit down to skill in old school RuneScape, or patiently click through Melvor Idol, or gather in Brighter Shores, you're doing more than just grinding. You're practicing self-care. You're crafting a space where your brain can calm down, focus, and recharge. You're building rituals that bring joy instead of stress. And that's just as much a part of the gaming world as the thrill of a raid or the glory of a boss kill. So next time you hear that voice in your head telling you, you're not a real gamer unless, remember this. Your way is real. Your journey matters. And your comfort is valid. Gaming isn't a competition. It's a playground, and everyone should get to play how they want. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I hope you found something to take away, be that insight, companionship, or relaxation. So far, I've told you my thoughts on PVM, but I'd love to hear from you guys. How do you like to play? Are you a skiller, a boss fighter, or a little bit of both? Maybe you switch it up depending on the day or your mood, hour by hour. What parts of your favorite games bring you the most comfort or joy? Have you ever felt pressure to play a certain way? And how did you work through that? Drop your thoughts, stories, or questions in the comments below. Let's make this a safe space to celebrate all kinds of gaming styles and neurodivergent experiences. And until next time, stay weird, stay cozy, and keep leveling.